We're going to go to East Bay Wilds and tour the nursery with Pete Bayou and find something about his favorite plants. But before we do, an anonymous donor has offered to provide $250 to East Bay Wilds if those funds are matched with a donation to the garden tour online now. So if you'd like to support both East Bay Wilds and the tour, you can help us by making a donation through the donate button on the tour's website at bringingbackthenatives.net. So I'm pleased to show you a couple photos. Pete specializes in manzanitas. He's just got a fantastic collection of and knowledge of manzanitas and a number of beautiful, interesting, and hard to find native plants. Pete is a longtime colleague and friend since the tour began 16 years ago. So let's go to see Pete at his nursery, East Bay Wilds in Oakland. Hi, Pete. Let's see. Can you hear us, Pete?
Can you hear me?
I can. I can hear you and see you.
Okay.
So thanks for
good.
us over to your nursery today.
No problem. It's my pleasure. Can you see things okay from there?
I can. It's a little washed out in the background, but you look great.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Welcome to East Bay Wilds, and thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Stephanie. Your garden is looking beautiful. Haven't seen it in a few years, and it's looking just gorgeous. Yeah, and Doug's talk this morning was really interesting too. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and how I got into this. I started landscaping with native plants when I was like 12 years old, when my family built a home out in the woods. And we built a home out in the woods with a pretty big piece of land. And I found all these really interesting plants on it and stuff. So I started gardening with them using the plants from the wild. And that garden is still going 40 something years later. It's still there, and it's beautiful now. So it's really grown up. But I really got to see it and experience it then. And then East Bay Wilds began as a landscaping service. But one of the frustrating things that I came to was the availability of a lot of plants. It seemed like there was mostly just very standard ones that were available places, and I really wanted to experiment with a lot of other things too. At the time, I was mostly just local around here, but I've expanded to include pretty much plants from all over the California floristic province. So we're not a typical standard nursery, really. It's more of a hobby of mine that has gotten really big. And so it's not all that user friendly, but people really do enjoy themselves when they come here. And we're open on Fridays from 9:30 to 4. During the COVID lockdown, we're asking people to please call beforehand so that we can stagger visitors somewhat throughout the day. And also to please wear a mask when you're here, which I usually do too. So if you're looking for just a couple of plants, Friday's really the best time to come. I'm often available on Saturday mornings also, but call first. And then I'm available by appointment. And if you need a lot of help with your yard, I do help a lot of folks with who come and they bring me photos of their yard and explain to me the various issues with their yard and what they would like, and then I make suggestions. And those tend to work out really pretty well for folks. So I have a lot of long-term clients that do that with us. So that's another way to work with us. Yeah. And one of the things I really enjoyed Doug's talk this morning too. Last night I went on a binge and watched all kinds of videos of Doug talking, and it really got me interested in going on what plants do we have that are larval host plants, and which ones are the super species, or I forgot what he called them, but the super species, and then the ones that are very specific. And it was fascinating. So I did a little research, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. So um, I believe really strongly that there really is a perfect intersection between beauty and ecological benefit. I discovered this by exploring the remote areas, even here in the Bay Area, which are almost all native. Up in the peaks around the Bay Area, the high peaks are definitely one of them, and then there's quite a few throughout the Bay. We're really lucky here, but these are all just remnant populations. But I found that as soon as I get into one, now immediately I feel the harmony and balance and just the absolute beauty of them. And then I look at the invasive species like the Scotch broom and stuff, which is very ugly to me. Although it can be very beautiful if you don't know much about it. But information is key to this whole thing. Find out what is really ecologically important in the area, and go with that, because and your whole sense of beauty will change. Um, because to me, even if an area is mostly dormant, like during the end of the summer, if it's at the end, if it's a native or mostly native remnant population or remnant area of the Bay Area, to me it's absolutely beautiful. Even the russet colors of the leaves of a buckeye when they go dormant in the summer, and the white bark is just really beautiful to me. And people tend to really catch on to this really quickly. So I think that there's that intersection of beauty and ecological importance is really there, and you can get it. You can get it in your own garden. So, and beauty it's the tool that we use for recognizing harmony and balance. And harmony and balance is what nature is all about. So, but definitely when gardening, knowledge is essential. So, one of the tools that I've been using that I wanted to share is Calscape. It's an online site where you can go and you can use it in many different ways, but it's really it's a wonderful encyclopedia of native plants, along with how to use them in the garden and what grows in your area, what's native to exactly your area, and beyond. And it's just a wonderful tool. And they have a little thing on it. They have a little count on it that says that it's the host, that for each plant. It says it's the host plant for so many species. There's a confirmed list, and then there's a likely list. Right? Just the likely list is much more usable at this point. And so few of these plants have really been studied much at all it's here in California. So these lists need to be taken with they're not quite exactly right for some of the plants, and particularly the ones that are rarer, more unusual. So I'm going to talk about this as I go through plants. But definitely a habitat garden is a lot more than just milkweed. A lot of people, it's wonderful that everybody's getting into milkweed, but there's a lot more than milkweed. We do carry a lot of milkweed, by the way. So I'm going to start with here, our Dutchman's pipe vine. Right here, we always have Dutchman's pipe in stock, pretty much. And these are really they're really interesting vines with interesting flowers. They grow in the partial shade they can even take close to full sun. But they have these really funky flowers on them. And I love to have these running up in an oak tree or some other kind of tree, or even if there's a non-native tree in the landscape, I'd like to add this to it and they hang down really neat over the garden. They're really interesting plant. So for me, beautiful is also interesting. And one of the things I really like is seasonal change in plants. One of the ways that I've studied like the wild places around California is by going to the same place over and over throughout the year to see the changes throughout the year. And that's when you really get to see like what is happening out there. So Dutchman's pipevine is one that's specific. It doesn't have a whole lot of host insects. It doesn't host a whole lot of insects or critters, but it does attract one in particular, which is the beautiful pipevine swallowtail. It takes a few years to get it often, but eventually they do come. So that's
Can
a
I just
neat one.
pop in while you're picking up your next plant, Pete? And
Sure.
Dutchman's pipevine plant is the only host plant for the pipevine swallowtail butterfly. It's a beautiful, large, iridescent, blue-black, just a stunning butterfly. And without that plant, we would not have the pipevine swallowtail butterflies. And you can actually see that plant at 145 today in Mary Cooper's garden in Castro Valley. It's a garden that Pete designed and installed, and she has a pipevine right now with a flower on it, and I think she's planning on featuring that. Okay, Pete, back to you.
I planted that vine. It took forever for it to grow. And then here's one of our introductions. This is the Plumas purple aster. The asters are really important for wildlife, for insects. There's so many, but it's more of a nectaring plant for many of them. It's a host plant for a few, but not that many, but it's a very important nectaring plant for many. This is one of our introductions. Another one of our introductions is this here. This is the Petrolia Pink Spring Beauty. It's a Spring Beauty, which is a Claytonia sibirica. And we found it up in Petrolia, California with the beautiful pink flowers. And this is a really useful plant for shady areas that you want to bring some color to. This is a beauty. And it spreads on its own. After a while, it takes about 2-3 years to really spread, but it just makes this beautiful buffer all around our beds here in the shady areas, or mostly shady areas. And it can flower beautifully in full shade as well. So it's another one of our edible plants as well. So there's quite a few of those. But this is it's Claytonia, so it's related to miner's lettuce and can be used the same. And I like it a little bit more than miner's lettuce for eating. So that's a really great plant to grow. And it will take over the Texans, not crazily. Yerba Santa is one of these plants that I don't have one right here to show you, but there's one over there actually. Not sure if I can zoom up to it, maybe not. Anyway, there's one over there. In that container right there. Yerba Santa is a beautiful plant that is locally native. There's a few remnant populations up in the hills, but not many. But that's one that you'll see on Calscape. It only has like 4 or 5. It only hosts like 4 or 5 insects, but I think that that's not correct. I think that there's a whole lot more because there are just clouds of them around, and I never see swallowtails, remain consistently present, swallowtail butterflies, unless you have Yerba Santa there, and there's always clouds of them around them. So that's a really important butterfly plant in particular. And bee thistle is another one. This is one that we carry. This is a really strange plant. It looks like a strange grass right now, but pretty soon, in another month, it will send up the flower stalks. And I've seen these get up to 6-7 feet tall. And these the flowers look like these small purple pineapples. They're really pretty. And we had a bee specialist come here to the nursery once when those were in full bloom, and they counted 19 different bee species just on that little batch of bee thistles. So that's an eryngium, or related to the sea hollies. Another one that I like to use a lot in landscaping is Artemisia californica. Right here, and Stephanie showed some big straight species. I like to use this one. It's called Montara, and it has a really nice horizontal branching pattern. And it doesn't get nearly as big as the straight species, but it's a beautiful one, and it works really well in the garden, planted with buckwheat or whatever. The really white, fragrant foliage really looks great next to the flowers of buckwheat and many other things. So I like that one a lot. And then there's creeping snowberry right here. This one is in flower. It's beginning to flower right now. I don't know if you can see those flowers there. They're pretty little flowers. They're cute. but this is a nice ground cover for underneath oaks. A lot of people are always look for things that do well under oaks, and this is one of them. It does beautifully under oaks. And once it's established, you don't really need to water it, so you're not going to be endangering your oak, which is nice. It is deciduous. When the leaves first come out, they look more like this here. So it's a very pretty little plant and very easy. Snowberry. And snowberry has 27, is a host plant for 27 different species, which is a fair number of them. The artemisias, by the way, the Montara there, Montara coastal sage, has 21 species that it hosts. Another plant that you don't see in nurseries hardly at all is this little guy. This is called the cotton batting plant. A little bit washed out, but it's a very white, fuzzy little plant that grows quickly. And that was the one that really had me sold on the butterfly plants for the garden, because this is one of the cudweeds, or the everlastings, they're also called. And what they do is they attract the American lady butterfly like crazy. They always find it like very quickly, and it's a very beautiful butterfly. And they'll practically destroy the plant. The plant usually comes back, but as soon as they're out and about, they very quickly their larvae will find the caterpillars will find these and just eat them right to the ground. And then very quickly you'll start seeing the butterflies around. So it's a nice one to have, and it reseeds. If you let it grow and then reseed, it will pop up throughout the garden. I try to put one of those in every garden that we work on. And those attract 14, but but in particular, the American lady butterfly is a real good one. And the milkweed, by the way, is listed on Calscape as being a host plant for 4 species. So in comparison, the cotton batting has 14 species that it hosts. Another really great plant is the California buckwheat. Here's one here that's about to flower. See? And I use buckwheats in every garden that we do. Every garden, I feel like, needs to have a few plants that are in particular. Every garden has manzanita for me. Every garden has ceanothus. Every garden has ceanothus, that's the California lilac. Every garden needs buckwheats, and every garden needs sages and grasses as well. I think grasses really harmonize the garden really well, especially when used right. Okay, the blue elderberry. I have a big one right here. We can get some beautiful blue elderberries right now. Here's one of them. You can see it's a little ratty at the bottom, but there it is. Blue elderberry is one of these plants that grows very, very quickly and very large. They get in the garden, they easily get to 20, 25 feet, and they can get to that in a single year if given enough water. They don't need water, but to get them to establish, it's good to give them a little extra. But elderberries bring in the birds and bring in like nobody's business. They're really just amazing at how quickly they grow and how quickly they create their own little ecosystem around them. They're on the street where we are, we're located in near downtown Oakland, by the way, in the Fruitvale district of Oakland. So it's a very urban center. It's where the whole East Bay settlement started right here in this neighborhood. But there's some elderberries that are wild elderberries, blue elderberries growing on the street that we're on. There's several of them.
Pete,
yes.
In the interest of staying on time, can you think of the last sort of thing you want to say, and then we're going to get ready to move on to the next garden?
Oh, okay, yes. I'll go quickly. I wanted to jump to the plants that are the super species. In one of them, Stephanie explained a little bit, but this is the holly leaf cherry, and this one is a host plant for 140 different ones, 140 different insects, along with, and the same for the choke cherry as well, which we also carry. And here is Salix exigua, or the sandbar willow, which hosts 215 species, which is the highest number I found on Calscape. We also carry things like blue oaks, which is 140 species, and even the ribes, the flowering currants, the chaparral currant, those are up in the 130 range. I'm sorry, they're in the 80, right around 80 range. For manzanitas, this is a beautiful. We carry a lot of rare and hard to find manzanitas. Here's one of them. This is the Santa Lucia manzanita from down in Big Sur. And one last thing I'll show. This is I do a lot of like container planting, and this is one of them here. Gosh, it's so bright. It's a little washed out, but this is a Munchkin Dudleya, and a very rare little Dudleya, little succulent from the island, one of the Channel Islands, and we grow a lot of these, a lot of different Dudleyas we have, and we do a lot of, and we're always experimenting with what grows in containers and what doesn't. So I can give you a lot of information about that. So thank you for visiting East Bay Wilds. I wish I went a little faster because I have a million other things to cover, but you'll have to catch me in person. So thank you.
All right. So let me say that
all the time.
Thanks for taking us on looking at the plants. So I want to say a couple of things. It was fantastic to hear all the birds in the background. I'm sure they're there because of the plants.
Yes, they're here.
So
there's two ravens here right now that are teasing my dog. They drop things over my dog and tease her, and they've been doing this for years, every afternoon.
Poor Lucy.
Yeah.
So Pete not only owns East Bay Wilds, which is a native plant nursery, but he is also a landscape designer, and he installs, he maintains, he does consultations, he does everything to do with native plants. So if you'd like to contact Pete, you can do it two ways. You can go to the Find a Nursery section of the website, and you'll find Pete under East Bay Wilds. East Bay Wilds is located in the Fruitvale district in the Flats, 27th and Foothill. If you'd like to find Pete, also going to look at the gardens he has designed, you can go to the Find a Designer section of the website and look for Pete, and you can see all the gardens that Pete has designed that have been on the tour. He designs beautiful gardens. You can go to East Bay Wilds now. The nursery is open. You can call for an appointment. In fact, on the nursery section, you'll find all the nurseries that are open at this time, all the native plant nurseries that are open at this time. You can see what they are. And you can also find out all the designers who are doing either virtual consultations or safe distance consultations at this time. So Pete, thank you so much for taking us and showing us some plants.
Thank you. Can I mention one other resource that's really helpful for people that I always mention, and that's the Facebook's California Native Plant Society page. It's a real wealth of information, especially for beginners, for people that are just getting into native plants, either gardening with them or just really appreciating them in the wild. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I chime in for a moment? Sorry. Pete, we got a bunch of questions for you. Would it be okay if I type your email in the chat here?
Absolutely.
So people can contact you directly? Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, and I would say I saw the questions too, and you can call Pete. You can visit him at the nursery to get those questions answered. And I also want to say that two of the gardens that we'll be seeing this afternoon were designed and installed by Pete. So Mary Cooper's garden, which is in Castro Valley, we'll be visiting at 1:45, and Maria Sargent's garden in Danville, we'll be visiting at 2:25. Were both designed and installed by Pete. So Pete, thank you so much. That was terrific.
Thank you.
I'm going to go now.
My pleasure.
Okay, Pete, bye-bye.